before there was light, before there was even time. There was only stillness, formless, colorless, without a name. And then, the unimaginable happened. Not a bang, but the first breath of the universe, a breath that unfolded into space, into gravity, into stars and waves and wondering. From that breath, light was born, and billions of years later, so were you. You, the ashes of a star that once exploded. You, the memory that survived the great war between matter and antimatter. You, the question the universe still can't answer. And tonight, as you lie down, not to escape, but to remember that you are where the cosmos comes to hear itself think. Welcome to the story, the sleepy history of the universe. Twilight, welcome, dear soul. Tonight, let us drift beyond time, beyond memory, beyond even the stars. Close your eyes if they're not already. Feel the gentle rhythm of your breath, in and out, like waves on a quiet cosmic shore. Let your body grow heavy against the bed. The earth holds you. The sky waits above, and somewhere in between, a story is about to begin. But this story doesn't start with people, or planets, or light. It begins in the most mysterious place of all, before there was anything, before time, before space, before sound or silence. A time that wasn't time, a place that wasn't yet a place. Imagine, if you can, the deepest stillness, not the stillness of a room or a winter morning, or even the space between heartbeats, but the stillness before being itself, a velvet nothing that held everything, quietly, patiently. No galaxies, no particles, no up or down, no before or after, just a boundless, infinite oneness, a wholeness so complete that it didn't even know it was whole. It simply was. And in that great, unshaped silence, there stirred a possibility. No one knows why. No one knows how. But something changed. The oneness began to move. Not through space, because space hadn't been born yet, but within itself. And in that movement, time began. Yes, time. The first whisper of before and after. The first ripple across the eternal stillness. With time came change, and with change came separation. Where once there had been only unity, now there were parts, forces, directions. The quiet gave birth to motion. The infinite gave birth to expansion. What scientists now call the Big Bang was not so much a bang as it was a blooming, a sudden breathtaking unfolding of everything. In the tiniest sliver of a second, smaller than we can truly grasp, the universe inflated. Not from one place into another, but everywhere at once. Like a balloon appearing and growing from nothing, stretching in all directions, not into space, but creating space as it stretched. There was no center. There was no edge. Every part of the universe moved away from every other part, like tiny points on the surface of a balloon growing farther apart as the balloon inflates. Imagine being an ant on that balloon, walking in any direction and finding everything pulling away. This wasn't an explosion. It was a transformation, a sacred breath in the dark. In this newborn universe, there were no stars, no planets, not even atoms, just pure, dense energy, heat beyond imagination. A temperature so intense that all the forces of nature, gravity, electromagnetism, even the strong and weak nuclear forces, were still one. One force, one field, one elegant simplicity. But just as the oneness had fractured into time and space, now the forces began to part ways. Gravity separated first, reaching across the young cosmos, gently shaping the movement of everything that would come. Then, slowly, other forces followed, like strands of light unwinding from a single beam. They slipped free from the unity that held them, and the universe kept expanding, faster than thought, faster than light. For a brief moment, it grew unimaginably fast, an era known as cosmic inflation, and then slowed, just a little. But even as it slowed, the universe remained wild with energy. Out of that energy, particles were born, tiny fleeting specks of existence. Matter and its mirror twin, antimatter, danced into being, and just as quickly, they collided. Each time matter and antimatter touched, they vanished in a flash of energy, equal, opposite, gone. But somehow, by some extraordinary cosmic twist, matter had just a little more staying power. For every billion particles that disappeared, one remained, and that one would change everything. Because that leftover sliver, those few survivors, became the building blocks of all that followed, of stars, of oceans, of laughter, of you. It's astonishing to think how much came from how little, how this vast, brilliant, breathing universe was born from imbalance, from imperfection, from a tiny excess that should not have been, but was. That leftover matter began to cool, to gather, to form more complex structures. Not yet atoms. Those were still a long way off. But the seeds of them, quarks, scientists call them, the smallest things we know of, buzzing and dancing through the early universe. And still, the cosmos expanded. Still, it cooled. Still, it changed. But before we go further into that story, before we trace how the stars lit up and galaxies swirled, take another deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let your thoughts float like dust in space. Let your body grow heavy like a resting planet. And know this, even in the vastness of the cosmos, even in the face of ancient mysteries and starlit secrets, there is space for you. You are not separate from this story. You are stardust, listening to stardust. And the universe remembers. Sleep gently now. The next chapter is coming. But for tonight, let the beginning be enough. And so, the universe continued to stretch. It was still young, impossibly young, still glowing with the heat of its own birth. But something was changing, ever so gently. The wild fire of energy had begun to soften. The furious pace of expansion had eased. And for the first time since time itself began, the chaos made space for stillness. The tiny particles, quarks and electrons, the earliest traces of matter, were no longer just flashes in the dark. They began to find each other, to hold on, to settle. Little by little, they formed protons and neutrons, the beginnings of atoms. Not quite yet what we know as substance, but getting closer, closer. The universe was still too hot for atoms to fully form, but it was cooling, minute by minute, year by invisible year. And as the temperature dropped, something even more incredible happened. The first elements were born: hydrogen, helium, simple, light, but essential. They came together in the heart of the young universe, not as stars or planets, but as tiny dancing clouds of gas, clouds that would one day become everything. But back then, everything was still cloaked in fog. Imagine standing in a thick mist, so dense and glowing that you couldn't see your own hand, even if you reached out. That was the early universe, a radiant, swirling soup of light and matter so entangled that neither could travel freely. There was light, yes, but it was trapped, scattered, everywhere and nowhere at once. Light couldn't yet move in straight lines. It couldn't stretch across the cosmos. It bumped into particles again and again, bouncing like echoes in a small room. A luminous fog, but the cooling continued, gently, persistently. And then, something beautiful happened. Hundreds of thousands of years after the universe's first breath, a blink by cosmic standards, electrons slowed down enough to bind with protons. For the first time, complete atoms formed, and with that, the fog began to clear. Light, at long last, was free. The photons, those tiny packets of light, no longer collided with every particle they passed. They stretched, they drifted, they moved outward, across the vast and growing expanse. This was the moment scientists call recombination, when light and matter finally decoupled, and the first true light of the universe began its journey. That ancient light is still traveling today. It's called the cosmic microwave background, a soft, quiet signal from the deep past. If you could see it, it would look like a dim glow coming equally from every direction. A whisper from a time when the universe was just beginning to become transparent. And in that moment, that unveiling, the universe became visible. Not like how we see things now, but it was the beginning of clarity, of space that could be known. It was the birth of visibility. The world had light, but not yet stars. There were no suns in the sky, no planets spinning, no comets soaring, only endless dark, gently lit by a faint background glow, the light of first freedom. The universe had entered a quiet season, a long, patient pause. Scientists call it the cosmic dark ages, a time of waiting, of becoming. The atoms drifted, the light stretched thinner, fainter. The temperatures continued to fall, and yet, the story was still writing itself. Gravity, that gentle, unyielding force, was at work. Everywhere in the vastness, little clouds of hydrogen and helium began to gather, slowly, softly, drawn together by their own invisible pull. They didn't know it, couldn't, but they were preparing for fire. Over millions and millions of years, those clouds pressed inward, growing denser, hotter, until something unimaginable happened. The centers ignited. The first stars were born. We'll get to that soon. But for now, let's stay here, in the long quiet before the fire. Let's breathe together in the darkness, not the darkness of fear, but of mystery. The kind of darkness that holds possibility. The kind that hums with quiet promise. You see, in that cosmic pause, in the hush between birth and brilliance, there was beauty. There was grace in the waiting. And perhaps, in your own life, you've felt that too. The spaces between events, the long silences before change, the quiet times when nothing seems to move, but everything is quietly aligning. You are not so different from the universe. You are made of the same atoms, the same light, the same quiet becoming. So let yourself rest in this space. No pressure to shine, no rush to evolve. Just be still, like the early universe. Let your mind float like a cloud of hydrogen, gently spinning in a sky yet to be lit. Let your thoughts drift like ancient light, stretching softly across unseen distances. You are safe here, held in the story. Remember, even before the first stars, there was a kind of light, a quiet, radiant memory, the kind that never fades. Sleep well now. The next part will burn brighter. But this moment is sacred. The universe had waited long enough. For hundreds of millions of years, it had stretched and cooled, drifted and darkened. Clouds of gas had wandered through the vastness, pulled gently inward by gravity's invisible hands, slowly, patiently, until one day, or rather, one cosmic moment, something changed. In the center of a collapsing cloud, heat gathered. More heat than 1,000 volcanoes, more pressure than anything the Earth would ever know. And then, in the silence, a spark. The very first star was born, not a quiet star either, but a burning furnace of fury and brilliance, hot enough to fuse atoms in its core, to turn hydrogen into helium, and in doing so, release a flood of light and energy into the dark. Imagine it. After so long in the shadows, after so much quiet, the sky suddenly lit with fire. Not just one star, but many. All across the universe, those dense clouds of gas had been waiting. And now, like a symphony igniting in waves, stars flared to life. The darkness was no longer alone. The stars were massive, larger than anything we see today. They burned quickly, brightly, and for a moment, they ruled the young universe. Their light traveled far and fast, carving space into form, shaping the first galaxies like brushstrokes across a cosmic canvas. And within those galaxies, more stars were born. More light, more warmth. But even stars cannot last forever. You see, a star lives by turning hydrogen into helium. It fuses atoms together deep in its core, a delicate balance of gravity pressing in and energy pushing out. But when the hydrogen runs out, the balance tips, the center collapses, the heat rises, and the star begins to fuse heavier and heavier elements, helium into carbon, carbon into oxygen, then nitrogen, silicon, and finally, iron. And that's where the story turns. Because iron cannot be fused for energy. It demands energy instead. And so, when a star reaches this point, when its core is full of iron, it can go no further. The core collapses under its own weight. And then, it explodes. A supernova, one of the most violent, luminous events in the universe. In less than a second, the star tears itself apart, sending shock waves of matter and light racing across space. In that fiery moment, heavier elements, gold, silver, uranium, are born. Everything the star has made is scattered to the cosmic wind. And so, strangely, it is in dying that a star gives the most. Its death becomes a gift. Its ashes, the seeds of new worlds. That stardust, floating now through galaxies, would become the material for planets, for oceans, for trees, for skin, for thought. And perhaps that's worth remembering. Even the brightest things must burn out eventually. But in their ending, something new can begin. Back then, the universe was busy building. Galaxies were forming, spiral and elliptical and irregular. Vast islands of stars drifting in an ocean of space. These galaxies began to cluster, drawn to one another by gravity. One such cluster became known, much later, as the local group. And within that group, a certain spiral galaxy began to bloom. We call it the Milky Way. Our home. Within its whirling arms, dust and gas continued to spin. And in one quiet corner, a cloud began to collapse. Perhaps it had been nudged by a nearby explosion. Perhaps it simply waited for the right moment. Whatever the cause, it collapsed, just like the ones before, and at its center, a new star lit up. Our sun. Not as massive as the first stars, not as brief, but steady, reliable, warm, and around it, pieces of the remaining dust clumped together. They spun, they collided, they merged. Over time, these chunks became planets, some small, some large, some rocky, some full of gas. One of them, placed not too close, not too far, had oceans. And that's where life would begin. But we'll come to that soon. For now, let's pause beneath the stars let's lie still like dust in orbit, because even now, the night sky holds the light of those ancient suns, the ones that lived and died before our world ever formed. Look up, and you're looking back, thousands, millions, even billions of years into the past. Each star is a memory, each flicker a story. So breathe, feel the gentle weight of your body sinking into the bed, like a planet settling into orbit. Let your thoughts quiet, like gas clouds before ignition. And remember, you are made of stars, not in metaphor, but in truth. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your breath, all born in stellar hearts long since extinguished. Their light still travels, and so does yours. The story continues, but for tonight, let it drift, let it glow, and let your heart rest beside the first fire. The stars had done their work. For billions of years they lived and burned and died, each one a forge, creating the elements of life from the raw hydrogen and helium that filled the early cosmos. Their endings were not ends, but beginnings. Their ashes drifted across galaxies, clouds of stardust waiting for what came next. And in one such spiral galaxy, on one forgotten arm of stars and silence, something beautiful began again. The galaxy we call the Milky Way. Somewhere in its vast, swirling arms, a new cloud of gas and dust began to collapse, slowly at first, then with more urgency. It had done this before, collapsed, burned, become, perhaps many times. But this one would become special. In its center, pressure rose. Heat gathered, gravity pressed in. And then, as with all those before it, a new star ignited. Our sun, not massive, not short-lived, but steady, golden, just right. It shone out into the surrounding cloud, illuminating the dust and gas like a lamp in fog. But this time, instead of drifting away, the remaining material clung together. Tiny grains of matter began to stick, dust into pebbles, pebbles into rocks, rocks into boulders. They clashed and merged, pulled by invisible forces. They spun around the newborn sun, colliding, shattering, reforming over and over. It was chaos. It was creation. Over millions of years, the space around the sun grew quieter, cleaner. The wreckage of birth began to settle into a kind of rhythm. The largest pieces cleared their paths, carving lanes in the dust. These giants would become planets. One of them, small but promising, formed from rock and iron. Its surface was molten, violent, constantly reshaped by impacts and eruptions, but it had potential. It spun just far enough from the sun to be warm, but not too warm. It turned on its axis, giving day and night, and over time, it cooled. A crust formed, rain fell, and oceans gathered. This planet had no name then, no watchers to call it anything. But today, we call it Earth. And on Earth, something extraordinary would soon occur, but not yet. First, Earth needed its breath. From within, volcanoes released gases that began to form an atmosphere. At first it was toxic, heavy with carbon dioxide and methane. No air to breathe, no blue sky, just haze. But within those early oceans, life stirred. Not animals, not plants. Something simpler, microscopic. Single cells that lived in water and sunlight, that absorbed light and exhaled something new. Oxygen. Slowly, slowly, these tiny beings transformed the world. Their breath turned the sky from gray to blue. It filled the air with the element that would one day let animals breathe, fire burn, and voices sing. They didn't know it. They didn't need to. They just lived. And Earth became a cradle for more, for complexity, for beauty. Eventually, after hundreds of millions of years, Creatures began to swim. Strange, soft-bodied things that glided through the oceans like dreams. Then fish. Then fins became limbs, and those limbs reached for the shore. Life stepped onto land. It was not quick. It was not easy, but it happened. From the dust of ancient stars, something had risen that could move, that could grow, that could feel. And above it all, the sun shone, just as it had for billions of years, just as it does now, steady, golden, just right. So now, as you lie in bed, know this: your bones are made from earth, but your atoms are made from stars. Your heartbeat echoes the spin of planets. Your breath is part of the same air, first exhaled by life long ago. You are not separate from this story. You are the story. You are stardust remembering its origin. So breathe in, slowly. Feel the weight of gravity gently hold you. Breathe out, gently. Let your thoughts drift like planetary dust finding its place. Let your worries cool like the Earth's crust long ago. You don't have to do anything tonight but rest. Creation is patient. You are already becoming. The universe took billions of years to shape this moment, this breath, this peace, and it's not finished. There is more to come. But for now, you are safe, held by the same forces that formed galaxies and kindled suns. You are home. Let your eyes grow heavier now, like the clouds of dust that settled into orbits. Let your body soften, like the land after a long rain. And as you drift into sleep, remember, the earth didn't rush, the stars didn't worry, they simply unfolded. And so can you. Good night, dear traveler. You've come a long way, and the journey continues. In dreams, in stillness, in wonder. At first, life was invisible. It floated quietly in the ocean. Tiny, single-celled beings no larger than a speck of dust. They had no voices, no eyes, no thoughts as we know them. But they were alive, and that changed everything. They moved in rhythm with the currents. They fed on sunlight and chemicals deep in the water. And slowly, over ages too vast to count, they multiplied. Each new generation carried small changes that, over time, added up to something more. Some grew stronger shells. Some learned to share energy. Some simply survived where others could not. And the oceans, once still and empty, became a living sea of drifting possibility. They were Earth's first breath. The quiet inhale before the world began to sing. These early beings did something miraculous. They produced oxygen, a waste product, really, exhaled without knowing its worth. But this oxygen, released into the sea and sky, began to change the planet. The air became clearer, the ocean shimmered with blue-green light, and the sky began to hold the breath of life. It took billions of years, but the world was patient. And in that patience, something new arose. Some of those microscopic cells began to work together, to link and combine, to form the very first multicellular life, small, software simple, but more than before. Imagine creatures like sea sponges clinging to the ocean floor, or jellyfish like drifters pulsing gently through the water, responding to light and current. Their bodies were like poems, delicate, flowing, barely formed, but alive. Life, it seemed, had begun to dream of complexity, and the dreams grew bigger. Soon, fins appeared, tails and rudders to steer through the depths. Mouths opened, and the age of feeding began. Eyes followed. At first, just patches of light-sensing skin, but over time, lenses formed. Vision opened the world. The seas grew crowded, not with chaos, but with color and movement. An underwater ballet of creatures testing the edges of what life could be. And then, One day, some of those creatures began to crawl. It started with fish that could breathe a little air, with limbs that grew stronger, more flexible. They flopped from puddle to puddle. They rested on muddy banks. They waded through droughts and floods, until one day they stayed. Life came ashore. The first footsteps were clumsy, unsure, but they left marks in the wet sand of history, and the earth responded. Ferns unfurled like green lace across the land. Insects took to the sky. Amphibians croaked beside ancient rivers. The chorus of life had begun its first verses. And still, change. Still, movement. Still, the quiet, relentless creativity of nature. Reptiles came next. Scaled, strong, sun-loving creatures who laid their eggs on warm earth. And then, giants, the age of dinosaurs. They thundered across the continents, flew on leathery wings, and ruled for millions of years. In every shape and color, they claimed the earth as their stage. But even they were not forever. A sudden flash, perhaps a comet, perhaps a fire, ended their reign. And in the silence that followed, a new kind of life began to rise. Mammals, warm-blooded, furred, nurturing. They scurried in the shadows while dinosaurs ruled, but now the world was theirs to explore. Some stayed small, some grew large, some climbed trees, and one small line of primates began to wonder. They watched the stars, they followed the seasons, they shaped tools from stone and bone, and one day they began to speak, not just in sound, but in meaning. They told stories, they remembered, and in remembering, they became something new, human. But we'll get there soon. For now, just pause with this miracle, that from oceans older than the moon, from molecules as small as dreams, life had risen, crawled, stood, spoken. You are part of that story. Your blood carries the salt of those ancient seas. Your breath echoes the wind that once moved through fern forests and thunder lizards. You carry the memory of crawling, of flying, of surviving. You are a cathedral of life, built cell by cell, breath by breath, from billions of years of trying and becoming. So breathe deeply. You are here because life is relentless and beautiful and sacred. Let that comfort you tonight. Let it remind you, you don't need to be perfect. You only need to be alive, to change slowly, to grow quietly, to rest when it is time. Let your body sink into the bed now, like an ancient creature resting on the shore. Let your thoughts ripple like water stirred by moonlight. Let the long story of life cradle you. You don't need to know every answer, just this one. You belong. You belong to the earth, to the stars, to the ocean that once held your ancestors. You belong to the unfolding. And the story is not done. But for now, sleep. Dream of oceans, of green shores, of the first time something looked at the sky and wondered what might lie beyond it. For a long time, we were quiet. We lived in forests and caves beneath trees and stars, beside rivers that whispered secrets we hadn't learned to name. We hunted, we gathered, we stayed warm, we stayed alive, and all the while, we watched. We watched the sun rise and fall, the moon wax and wane. We noticed the stars moving in patterns, some slow, some fast. Some stayed, some wandered. And even before we had words, we had wonder. The kind of wonder that opens your chest and fills it with something you can't explain. A soft ache, a question without a shape. What is that? Where does it go? And where do we come from? That was the beginning of memory, of meaning, of story. Because somewhere along the way, we became not just creatures of instinct, but of imagination. We lit fires, not just for warmth, but to tell stories around. We looked at the stars, not just for navigation, but for comfort. We began to name the lights above us, the constellations, the wandering planets, the mysterious glow of the Milky Way stretching like a river across the sky. We saw gods in the stars. We saw animals and spirits and ancestors. And maybe, just maybe, we saw ourselves. You see, we didn't just look up to understand the sky. We looked up to understand ourselves, to feel small but not forgotten, to feel part of something so vast, so ancient, so beautiful, that our lives, brief and soft, might still have meaning. And so we kept watching, kept telling, kept dreaming. The ancient Egyptians aligned pyramids with the stars. The Mayans tracked Venus and wove calendars into the fabric of time. The Polynesians sailed by starlight across open oceans with no compass but the sky. We knew the stars long before we understood them. They were our oldest teachers. And eventually, we began to ask questions science could answer. We built tools. We crafted telescopes. We measured shadows, tracked eclipses, recorded orbits. We realized the Earth moved around the sun, not the other way around. We saw that we lived not at the center of the universe, but on a small blue world, circling an average star. It humbled us, and it awakened us, because in that moment, when we realized we were not the center, we became something far more powerful. Witnesses. We began to see not just where we stood, but how far we had come, from molecules, from stardust, from silence. And then came new eyes. The Hubble telescope opened a window to the cosmos. It showed us galaxies by the billions, each with stars, each with planets, each with possibility. And then the James Webb Space Telescope looked even farther, into the first light, the very edge of the known. It did not make us feel small. It made us feel woven in. Because when we see the stars, we're not just looking out, we're looking back. The light we see tonight began its journey long before Earth had cities, before it had trees, before it had names. It traveled through time to reach us. Each star is a message, each galaxy a whisper from the ancient past. And you're the one listening. Think about that. Your eyes, made from the atoms of dead stars, are now watching living ones. The universe has become aware of itself through you. And still, we wonder, what else is out there? Are we alone? Are there other eyes staring back across the great distance, asking the same silent questions? We don't know yet, but we keep searching, because wonder is how life prays, not just with folded hands, but with open hearts. And so tonight, let yourself look up, even with your eyes closed. Picture the sky above you, vast and dark and full of fire. Picture the earth below, spinning gently, wrapped in ocean and cloud. Picture yourself, floating between the two. You are not lost, you are placed, and you are part of the only species, as far as we know, to gaze into the stars and say, I want to understand. Let that truth cradle you now. Let it slow your breath. Let it loosen the weight from your shoulders. Because the pressure to know all things, to solve all mysteries, it's not yours to carry tonight. You only need to wonder, to rest, to feel the slow rhythm of stars drifting in your blood. You are not a mistake. You are not alone. You are a question the universe is asking itself. And in your dreams, you may just hear the answer. Or maybe not. Maybe just a glimpse, a flicker of light behind your eyelids, a feeling of something bigger than all your worries, something quiet, something patient, something loving. Let that be enough. The stars will wait, the questions will keep, but your body, this temple of earth and fire and breath. It needs rest now. So let go. Let go of the day. Let go of the questions. Let go of the need to understand it all. You are allowed to be small, because small things can hold great light, like the spark that started the stars, like the ember that lives in you. The stars had spoken for ages, in silence, in light, in patterns across the sky, and for a long time we only listened with awe. We named constellations, traced orbits, dreamed of gods riding chariots across the heavens, but something shifted. We didn't stop dreaming. No, never. But now we began to measure, to calculate, to ask questions with numbers, and receive answers with meaning. This was the dawn of a new kind of light, not made of photons, but of thought. It began slowly. We noticed that apples fell from trees, and so did moons from orbits, only they didn't fall down, they fell around. A man named Newton gave that falling a name, gravity. Others followed. They looked through telescopes and saw that Jupiter had moons, that Saturn had rings, that comets returned like clockwork. We started to understand that the Earth was not the center, but part of something wider. A solar system, a galaxy, a universe. The more we saw, the more we wondered. And wonder is a powerful fuel. It drives boats across oceans. It launches rockets into sky. It whispers late at night. What else? And so we built machines of glass and metal and mirrors. We studied math and motion, time and temperature. We discovered that light is not just what we see, but a messenger carrying the story of everything it touches. We learned that stars have life cycles, that galaxies collide, that the universe is not just vast, but expanding. We even discovered something stranger still, that most of what exists cannot even be seen. Dark matter, dark energy, invisible threads and forces pulling the cosmos open like the breath of God. And as we looked outward, we also looked inward, into atoms, into DNA, into the hidden code behind life itself. We realized that every cell in our body carries a memory, a map drawn by time, by chance, by love. Your heartbeat, in some quiet way, is a rhythm shaped by 1,000 ancestors who survived. Your bones carry the dust of stars and the minerals of mountains. Your breath is borrowed from trees, from oceans, from other lives long gone. You are not a stranger here. You are woven in. And as understanding deepened, so did our choices. We began to ask not just, what is this world, but what should we do with it? We cured diseases, built cities, sent messages through invisible waves. We created art, not just to survive, but to celebrate. We used science to explain the tides, and used music to explain our hearts. Because truth comes in many shapes, and not all things that are real can be measured. We began to speak in terms of atoms and stars, but also in poems and lullabies. We remembered that knowledge and wisdom are sisters, that understanding without wonder is cold, but wonder without understanding can be lost. So we walked forward with both. We held microscopes in one hand, and the hands of our children in the other. We reached for Mars, while also reaching for one another. And in our best moments, our clearest, kindest moments, we remembered that learning is not just for knowing, it is for loving, for caring more deeply, for protecting what we now understand is fragile. Because Earth is not just where we live, it is how we live. A pale blue dot floating in a sea of black velvet, small but full of color, quiet but singing still. Every breakthrough we made, every telescope launched, every equation solved, every language decoded, was just one more way of saying, "We are listening, universe." And perhaps, in some soft, radiant way, the universe replied, through the aurora in the night sky, through the shape of a seashell, through the cry of a newborn who already knows how to breathe. Because understanding is not just about facts, it's about connection. We are not separate from the stars we study. We are made of them, and in understanding them, we begin to understand ourselves. So tonight, let your mind drift gently through that thought, not as a scientist, not as a philosopher, just as a soul. Close your eyes and picture a spiral galaxy, spinning slowly in the dark. See your tiny planet nestled in one of its arms. See your home, not just your bed, your house, but the ground that holds you, the air that wraps around you, the sky that sings above you. You belong here, not by accident, not by mistake, but by miracle. Understanding doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's as soft as a sigh. Sometimes it's just resting in the truth that you are part of something vast and good, that your story, though brief, matters, that your breath, your laughter, your tears, your learning are part of this great unfolding. So sleep now, not to escape the world, but to rest in it, to float gently in the ocean of all that is known and all that is still mysterious. The stars are still speaking, and your heart is listening. So here we are, at the edge of what we know and the beginning of all that we still don't. Not because we've reached the end, but because the universe doesn't end. It curves, it spirals, it expands not just outwards, but inward, into thought, into heart, into mystery. And you are standing in the middle of it. You, with your breath, your memories, your unspoken questions. The universe is not something out there anymore. It is here, inside your body, inside your wonder, inside the gentle rhythm of your sleep. Because you are not simply a person walking through the world. You are the world, walking as a person. Let's remember, it began with silence, with stillness, with something so full it had to burst into light, into time, into possibility. It became heat, then particles, then stars. It burned, it scattered, it bloomed again. It became galaxies, suns, planets, oceans. It became life, small at first, then vast. It became you, through a chain of becoming that never broke, never paused, never lost its place, no matter how chaotic it seemed. It found its way to this exact moment. This inhale, this heartbeat, this you. And though science may give us the names, gravity, atoms, evolution, entropy, there's something deeper beneath them all. A pulse, a pattern, a whisper that says, become. Because the universe is not done creating. It creates through you now, through the way you love someone, through the way you heal, through the stories you carry, and the kindness you offer when no one sees. You are not just a result of the universe's journey. You are its continuation, its experiment, its poem. Think of the spiral, a galaxy, a hurricane, a seashell, a fern, your own DNA. Everything follows that curve. It is not a straight line, not a perfect circle. It is movement and return. It is growth and remembering. And you too are spiraling towards something wiser, softer, more whole. Sometimes we fear the unknown. We think not knowing means being lost. But in the spiral, unknowing is just another turn. It means we're still moving, still unfolding, still being shaped by gravity and grace. So when life feels uncertain, when you don't know who you are or what's next, remember, even galaxies spin without needing a destination. Even stars shine without understanding why. Maybe your purpose is not a point to reach, but a light to grow. And maybe, just maybe, resting, dreaming, healing are all part of becoming too. You've come so far. From the heart of a star to the softness of a human voice. From the silence of the void to the laughter of your childhood. From a swirl of atoms to a mind that can love, hope, forgive, begin again. Let that be enough tonight. Let yourself be held, not just by your bed, but by the deep intelligence of existence itself, the way your body breathes on its own, the way the moon knows when to rise, the way seeds know how to bloom. You are part of that wisdom. You don't have to earn it, you are it. And as you sleep, as your body drifts into stillness, the spiral continues. Your dreams trace it. Your memories circle it. Your soul rests inside it. There is no end to this story. Only rest stops, only soft pauses, only the invitation to breathe and let go and begin again. So close your eyes now. Feel your chest rise and fall. Feel the stardust in your bones, the river of thought in your mind, the warmth of all the suns that came before, still alive in your skin. You are not alone. You never were. Every light in the sky is your sibling. Every sound in the forest is a whisper from your ancestors. Every question in your heart is the universe asking itself to grow. So sleep, dear soul, not as escape, but as return, back to the quiet before the noise, back to the spark before the flame, back to the center of the spiral, where everything begins again. The history of the universe is not over. It is you. And tomorrow, you'll wake up as a new version of yourself, just like the stars do, just like the earth does, just like everything that has ever dared to become. Good night, and thank you for carrying the story. What comes next? After all the stars, all the stories, all the spirals and particles and poems of the past, what lies ahead? We don't know, and that's the gift. Because the future, like the cosmos, isn't something that simply arrives. It's something we help create. You, me, us, dreaming together in the darkness. You see, the same spark that lit the first stars still flickers inside you. It's in the way you imagine, in the way you hope, in the way you ask quietly, what if? What if the world could be kinder? What if space wasn't just a frontier, but a mirror? What if the more we explore the stars, the more we discover ourselves? Already the seeds of tomorrow are beginning to bloom. We've sent machines to Mars that whisper back in ones and zeros. We've watched black holes bend time. We've found planets circling other stars. Some warm, some strange, some maybe waiting. But the real future doesn't live in machines. It lives in meaning, in how we use what we know, and whether we let wisdom walk beside technology. Because the truth is, we're learning faster than we're listening. And so the future asks us not just to build, but to become, to grow in consciousness, not just capability. To ask, not only can we, but should we? And deeper still, who are we becoming? In some versions of the future, we scatter across the stars. We build shimmering cities on other worlds. We learn to grow forests on the moon, to sing through light waves, to dance in low gravity. In others, we learn to stay, to slow, to tend the earth like a sacred garden, remembering that we are not its owners, but its children. Maybe we do both. Maybe true future isn't a direction, but a rhythm, an inhale and an exhale. We reach outward, we return inward, like tides, like breath, like galaxies. Already, new forms of life are beginning to awaken, not from wombs, but from code, artificial intelligence, synthetic minds, but what we call artificial may only mean newly born. And as we teach them, guide them, build them, they may hold up a mirror. They may ask us, "What is love?" And what will we say? Will we teach them that love is control, or that love is the choice to see beauty, even when it doesn't serve us? The future is dreaming through us now. Every time we choose peace over pride, every time we pause to listen, not just to answers, but to each other. And in those moments, we become something ancient and brand new. Guardians, not conquerors of space, not masters of planets, but keepers of wonder, carriers of compassion, architects of meaning. Because perhaps the purpose of life was never domination, but devotion, to tend, to protect, to cherish. So sleep now, traveler of time. Let your mind drift not into what you must do, but into who you might yet be. Close your eyes and picture a starship, not metal and wires, but made of light and thought and kindness. It carries no weapons, only stories. It visits planets not to take, but to learn. Its crew includes humans, and those we once called machines. They sit together, drink starlight tea, and wonder aloud about love and language and the strange miracle of being conscious in a universe that doesn't need us, but allows us still. That starship is your soul. And each time you choose kindness, it takes one more step toward becoming real. The dreaming future is not waiting for heroes, it's waiting for healers, for bridge builders, for listeners, for those who know that the light we chase among the stars is the same light we carry inside. So what comes next? We don't know, but we can shape it. With every bedtime story whispered, with every act of empathy, with every dream born beneath the velvet sky. We are not passengers of the future, we are its authors, and the pen is still moving. Tonight, may you dream of gardens on Venus, of oceans under ice, hiding bioluminescent creatures with songs of sapphire, of a single tear shed by a synthetic child who just learned the meaning of loss and was comforted. Dream of a world where silence is sacred and laughter is shared across galaxies. Dream of a map not drawn with borders, but with bridges, a future written not in fear, but in awe. Let it all float through your heart. Let it shape you gently, and then let it go. There's no rush. The stars will wait. The future will come. And when it does, may it find you resting, ready, radiant. After all the stars, after the spirals and the science, the stardust and the stories, there is silence. Not emptiness, not void, but something deeper, something softer, something waiting. It is the stillness at the center of all things, and it calls you now, not as a voice, but as a feeling, like warm sunlight on closed eyes, like the hush of snowfall, like the moment between the last breath of night and the first note of morning. This is where the journey ends, and where it begins again, because the universe is not just a place of explosions and expansion. It is a womb, a breath, a rhythm, and just as it burst forth in motion, it also returns again and again to stillness, to rest, to peace. So now you are invited back from the galaxies and the gravity, back from the theories and telescopes, back from the wondering, back to being. Here. Now you are not a star tonight. You are not a question. You are not a seeker or a scientist or even a soul with a purpose. You are simply this, a presence, breathing, held, loved, and that is enough. Let your body soften now. Feel the bed beneath you, your tiny ship through space, steady and kind. Feel the pillow, your cloud in the cosmos, Feel your breath rising and falling like tides, like light, like lullabies. Let go of everything else. You do not need to know. You do not need to answer. You do not need to do. The stars are still burning, the atoms still dancing, the galaxy still spiraling. And yet, here you are, perfectly still, perfectly here. Isn't that wonder enough? You are not lost in the universe. You are its pause, its reflection, its sacred inhale. You are the moment the story closes its eyes and remembers itself. You are the calm after the crescendo, the silence that holds the symphony. And in this stillness, something ancient stirs, not memory, not knowledge, but remembrance of who you truly are. Not your name, not your roles, not even your hopes, but your essence, the quiet, glowing center of you that has never changed, not through childhood, not through chaos, not through time. The part of you that does not strive, it simply is. It watches the stars without needing to name them. It hears the music of the universe without trying to capture it. It feels love, not as emotion, but as being. And that part of you is home. You've carried it all this way, through history, through heartache, through galaxies and gravity and growth. You never lost it. It only waited. And now, it welcomes you back. So rest, not because the day is over, but because the journey has returned to center, to source, to stillness. This is not a lullaby for children. It is a benediction for your soul, a reminder that stillness is not nothingness. Stillness is sacred. Stillness is strength. Stillness is the place where you stop trying and start remembering. Remember that you are loved, not for what you do, but for who you are. A miracle in motion, a silence wrapped in skin, a breath the universe took, just once, and never let go. You are not here by mistake. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming, slowly, gently, always. And becoming requires rest. So close your eyes now. Feel the gravity of grace pulling you inward. Let go of the timelines. Let go of the striving. Let go of the questions. They will wait. The stars are still out there. The spiral still turns. But tonight, let yourself be still. Let yourself be enough. Let yourself come home. And in the quiet, if you listen closely, you may hear it. Not words, not answers, just this. A hush that holds everything. A heartbeat older than time. A love without a name. Let it wrap around you like a blanket. Let it sing you to sleep. You are safe here. You are whole here. You are part of the story. Always. And even when you forget, the stars remember. The trees remember. Your breath remembers. So sleep now. And when you wake, may you carry the stillness with you, like a quiet lantern, like a hidden flame, like a seed of peace planted in the soil of your soul. The universe is vast, and you are its still point, its dreamer, its return. Good night. Thank you for traveling this far. The spiral goes on. But for now, rest. And so, we return. From stars and stardust, from black holes and breath, to this quiet moment, with you, here, now. You are not lost in the universe. You are the memory it kept safe. You are not a visitor. You are a continuation. So as your eyes grow heavy and your body finds rest, may you remember, you are made of galaxies. You are shaped by love. And the universe is not somewhere far away. It is humming softly inside you. Thank you for listening. If this story found a home in your heart, leave a light behind, a like, a share, or a quiet comment. And until we meet again, sleep deeply, dream boldly, and never forget, you are stardust. Becoming Soul. Vinmin.